What's up YouTube, Webberz05 here, coming at you today with Q&A number 63. So I'll get straight into it, guys. First couple questions are from Sparkman91, who I have not heard from in a while, so let's get straight into that. 1. You have 10 quid to spend on snacks and drinks. What would be your go-to snacks and drinks be? For me, so for 10 quid, I would probably get a multi-pack of either Pom Bears or McCoy's Flame Grilled Steak Crisps, because I really like those. I'd probably get, since I work in Sainsbury's and that's where I primarily shop, I'd probably grab some sweets as well. I've been really having a kick into Gold Bears at the moment because they've been hanging on clip strips from our store, so they're just too tempting not to buy. I've been trying to resist, but it's so difficult when they're just hanging there right next to you while you're walking down the aisle. It's like, don't tempt me. And I've been binging those for a few weeks, pretty much since Halloween. And for a drink, I'd probably grab some Coke. Can't go wrong with some Coke. Unless you're my dentist giving me a hassling about my teeth. I'm getting better though. 2. Here is a Yu-Gi-Oh question. Yu-Gi-Oh has some iconic openings. Which ones are your favourite? In my opinion, the best one has to be the Yu-Gi-Oh GX dub opening. Get your game on. To be perfectly honest, I actually like Get Your Game On like the least of all the Yu-Gi-Oh openings. That's just my opinion though. I really don't like it as much as the others. My favourite of the openings would probably have to be the second one in Zexal of Halfway to Forever. For me, I really like it because as a big enthusiast of rock music, I like a lot of things which have a really good guitar tune to it, and that's probably got and Halfway to Forever probably has my favourite guitar opening in all the Yu-Gi-Oh themes, so that's why I probably like that one the most. And as per usual, my final questions are from my good friend Darkpetition84, who has 9 questions for me today. Alright, quite a few questions. This might take a while, but let's get through them. 1. In late March, it'll have been 10 years since we met and 10 years since you came back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Do you plan to celebrate 10 years since coming back to the game? I did not even realise it had been that long. Cool. I'd be completely open to doing something for it. I have no clue what I would do yet, but I've got a couple months to figure it out. Sorry. Trying to think what kind of thing I would want to do. 10 years since me getting back into the game properly, that's pretty much... I mean, it doesn't feel like it's been that long, but thinking about it, it has been that long, because I did start going to Dead Universe shortly after I got the job which I'm at now, which as of next year, yep, I will have been 10 years at my job. That's a scary thought. Crazy. How have I put up with retail for 10 years? Who knows? But, so, yeah, I might do something to celebrate. I just haven't got a clue of what I'm going to do yet, but I'll start having a think about it. 2. Thoughts on Blowback Dragon? Blowback. That's the level... pretty sure that's the level 6 version of Barrel Dragon. So, yeah, Blowback Dragon's alright. I like the design of how it looks. Back when I was playing the video games, there was an opponent where you did have to face Blowback Dragon, and yeah, it's not exactly very fun to go up against. But overall, it's pretty decent. I mean, you know, for a card that's reliant on a coin toss. So, yeah, it's not bad. Not amazing, but yeah, I found it as an opponent in the game, it was very annoying. As a card in the TCG, it's alright. Unless the coin flip goes against you. 3. Thoughts on Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer? I quite like Kaiku. It's a way that basically stops your opponent banishing from the grave, and you can banish stuff from your opponent's grave every time it inflicts damage. And I checked, it's a spellcaster. I could tech that in Endymion if I felt like it. I might consider that if we start getting into a format where the grave is hugely dependent. That being said, it is kind of dependent right now, what with, at my local, Super Heavy is still a thing. I could use that as a counter. I'll think about that. Yeah, I'm probably going to try it. Yeah, I might try that. I'll have a think. It's also to level 4. If I go back to playing Judgment, it's only one level high. It's only one level higher from Jalgin. Yeah, I could go back to doing that. But overall, I quite like it. I very much enjoyed using it in the GOAT tournament that we had recently at Tabletop Republic, though I don't think you particularly enjoyed me using it against you. But I can't deny, Kaiku's just fun. 4. Thoughts on Tribe Infecting Virus? Tribe, again, is one of those very good cards back from GOAT. Particularly combining it with Sinister Serpent, where you could just basically get like a free use of it straight away. Sorry guys, I'm so tired. But yeah, I also know that Tribe did come off the ban list recently, but like nobody's playing Tribe. Though I guess Tribe's now at that point it's just been power crept. Yes, it's not once per turn, but there's like so much easier ways of just dealing with cards rather than just discarding a card and declaring a type. You could just use one card that just deals with most stuff. Like Rangeki's at 3, that's still a much easier use of a board wipe than Tribe. I suppose you could play Tribe if you're trying to pop your own stuff if it goes off from destruction. But I think it's now just at the point. So yeah, back in the day, Tribe was a very annoying card to deal with. In current format now, it's just kind of been power crept out of the game, so it's not really a big deal, which is probably why it hasn't been seeing as much play since it got released. 5. Thoughts on Ancient Gear Beast? Yeah, I'm not particularly fond of Ancient Gears in general. Like one of my friends, he used to, back during the 5D Synchro eras, he played Ancient Gear Beast in his main, and it was so annoying that it would just constantly shut down my attacks, and it's very easy to summon one Tributor. Well, it didn't so much shut down my attacks, it shut down my ability to stop attacks, which was equally as bad. And it's just... And I understand that 2k is not exactly huge attack to get over, but back in those days, if you couldn't keep your monsters on the field to be able to go into your bigger ones, you kind of struggled, and Ancient Gear Beast was basically just a way that said, you're not keeping a monster on the field and I'm just going to keep hitting you. So yeah, it was quite annoying back in the day. 6. Thoughts on Guardian Sphinx? I forget which one Guardians... I feel like I know which one Guardian Sphinx is, but I'm just going to double check and make sure it is the one that I'm thinking of. If it's the one that's based off flip summoning, then yeah, that should pretty much remind me, but I'll just quickly check. Guardian Sphinx... Yeah, it is the one I'm thinking of. Yeah, this is another card that gave me some grief back in the video games on the DS. So yeah, that thing was not fun to... Guardian Sphinx was not fun to deal with back in the video games. Cool. Like, if I saw my opponent's tribute set, I'm like, oh crap, it's Guardian Sphinx. And because it's got such a big defense, it was not very easy to get rid of at all. It wasn't easy to get rid of at all. Basically my options of dealing with it were I either let my opponent just flip summon it, put everything back, and I try setting up my board again, or I just suicide into it and take the damage just so they can't do it. But yeah, it was very... But yeah, it was definitely very annoying to deal with. I'm glad I have not had to deal with that card in several years. I don't think I've ever dealt with it in proper TCG. I've only ever dealt with it in the video games. But yeah, overall, Guardian Sphinx was not a fun card to deal with. 7. Thoughts on BLS Envoy of the Beginning. Very, very powerful card from back when it got released. The ability as a multi-attacker or just spot removal of monsters. Oh, I might need a nap after this Q&A. But yeah, back to BLS. So yeah, despite the fact that BLS has very strong and oppressive effects for when it was released, I'd still quite like the card just because it's nice and nostalgic as one of like the original Chaos monsters, or probably like the original Chaos monster. So you can't deny it. BLS, it's just nice and nostalgic, even if it was one of the most powerful cards in the game for a long time. But overall, I like it. 8. Thoughts on Ring of Destruction, both pre-errata and errata. Pre-errata, I really like watching characters take advantage of it in the anime of combining it with Ring of Defense. It kind of sucks that the TCG never got to do that back in GOAT format because Ring of Defense didn't exist, which is stupid. But whatever. And yeah, back in GOAT format, that was just like one of those. In GOAT format, I will admit, Ring of Destruction was a decentish bit of spot removal against particularly difficult cards, but it was very annoying when either player used it as like just a suicide and forced the match to end in a draw. Not great on that reason. But it was what it was back in the time. And when they did the errata, and my opinion of it post errata, well, most of the erratas that they did on all these old school cards, it's just terrible. Like now it's just like you can't use Ring. Now it's like you can't use Ring of Destruction to end your opponent because they need to have more life, equal or higher life points than you, which means you can't use it to take your opponent out unless you were to have an additional option that would allow you to deal the damage to take them out. So now it's just kind of like whatever. It's really not as good now, which is probably why it's not been seeing play. So yeah, just another one of those cards that was really good back in its prime. Then Konami decided to be like, you know what, we're just gonna errata this card, make it absolutely terrible, and then it's fine. So yeah, is what it is with a card, with an old school card like that when it gets errated. And question 9. Thoughts on Chaos Emperor Dragon Envoy of the End, both pre-errata and errata. Again, kind of similar to Ring of Destruction. My opinion on this, pretty similar to Ring of Destruction. Like, despite the fact I never actually played during the format when Chaos Emperor Dragon was huge, I've heard all about what it did. I've heard about the main use of what it did. It was basically just the way of setting up the Yatta log, and that's just absolutely horrible and oppressive. Which, as someone who has been Yatta logged, it was not fun in the slightest. Hated it. Though, frankly, I don't know if I hated the Chaos Emperor for allowing it to happen, or the Yatta who is essentially just directly responsible for it. But yeah, overall, back in the day, Chaos Emperor, it was way too good, and it deservedly had to get banned, and I'm glad it did. As for the errata, current errata is essentially now the errata just makes the card just now becomes like excessively situational as a game ender, because now it can still do its effect of pay a grand, blow up the field in hands and burn your opponent for 300 for every card. But naturally now it's got the condition that no cards and effects can be activated afterwards, so you're leaving both yourself and your opponent into a top deck position. So Now it's just like, basically what you would do with Chaos Emperor is use it as a as your final turn, game-ending burn. But that's about it. So overall, now it's pretty fine. And if your opponent wants to get salty about getting hit with Chaos Emperor for game, hey, that's basically just what people are going to do with it now, so get over it. And on that note, guys, that is all the questions I have today, so thank you very much to Dark Magician and SparkTech for your questions, very amusing. And if anyone else has any questions for me, I do these Q&As every Wednesday, UK time, morning or afternoon, depending on my schedule. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.